He has that innate talent of even the most difficult times, giving comfort, giving solace, bringing stability. In my 64 years, there are people I've known that have passed away, and there's been Tony that has been there to comfort the family and the loved ones, sometimes the most difficult times of their lives. He could better this community as a public servant, but bring people together, even people with divergent thoughts and philosophies, but in the end, bringing enough comfort, enough stability to a situation that there's a consensus and then resolution and progress that is made. So, I'm so excited. I've seen what a great job Tony's done now back in the legislature. But I do believe that with him as governor, that ability to bring people together, to bring folks even with different perspectives together, things that this island needs. God bless Atacaubo 2026. God bless Guam.
I'm Tony Atta, and I approve this message.
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
Stick with me. I might be having some internet issues. So, first of all, I don't know if you can hear me or if this thing is going in and out. But first of all, my eternal thanks to the Guam Power Authority and all their crews. I got power back. I got island power back yesterday afternoon. And so, so we had after Typhoon Sinlaku, we invested in some redundancies. So we got this generator, and we got with our service provider Docomo to understand better what the issues were, and the issues revolve around power. Okay, so this time around, Bobby came and went. The power went off the night before Bobby, and gosh, I don't know if this feed is holding. I don't know if I have to cancel this stream and redo the whole data thing. We'll just keep on going. I'm just concerned that the thing will drop like in the middle of this. Anyway, so the redundancies didn't work. And to make a long story short, yesterday we invested in more redundancies, and so things started to work yesterday. And then the power went on. So it was just such a great thing, right? So anyway, throughout that entire time, even before Bobby, like in the lead up to Bobby, the lead up to Sinlaku, very stressful time for me. While I enjoy reporting on the weather and like talking to the Eidlet brothers and National Weather Service and bringing that coverage to you, it is like I'm getting older, and this is not a young man's type of game anymore. And so it's pretty stressful, right? And especially when there's no power and there's certain limitations, whatever. The point is that now we're back on island power, and our regularly scheduled shows will resume starting tomorrow morning. Gosh, I am concerned about the internet holding up. If you don't mind, I'm so sorry to have to do this. I'm going to exit this show, and I'm going to... No, you know what? Let's just move forward. Let's move forward. There's a couple of things that I want to do today. One is, and it all revolves around this debate about the business privilege tax going from 4.5% to 4%. In the budget, and it's being deliberated in the fiscal year 27 budget, which begins on October 1, 2026. Now, this is a continuation or this is the final chapter in a promise that the Republican senators made to voters. They were going to do this. This was a very clear thing among every Republican except one who was elected into the legislature, and it was their promise to reduce the BPT to its normal level of 4% from a 5% level. Now, additional context to this is, for whatever you think about Governor Lulian Guerrero, in my opinion, one of the best things that Governor Lulian Guerrero ever did was reduce the BPT to 3% for the vast majority of the businesses of this island. That is true small business support. That is a true rollback of a regressive tax. Governor Lulian Guerrero, she did that. And it was a major boon, I can tell you, to our business. And I have to imagine to any other business like ours who is not in the top leagues of the major revenue driving businesses of this island, the large corporations, right? But the Republicans, they wanted to take it a step further because this is a promise that was made a long time ago. So to the voters, this was the Republicans making good on a promise that everybody made a long time ago and everybody reneged on back in 2018 and 2019. The question is this the right thing to do? And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that on the other side of the commercial break. Then we'll start to bring you footage from the current session, which is ongoing. They're on the expenditures now, from what I'm told by Senator Parkinson. But they spent a considerable amount of time on the revenues, which is the tax side of things. That was where the BPT was discussed. And really good points were made by a coalition of 4 Democrats and 1 Republican senator about, hey, I get it, you guys made a promise, but I want you guys to consider something. And that is all the stuff that we can do if we don't go through with this additional tax cut, which, by the way, according to these senators, is a tax cut that will, by and large, benefit only carpetbagging large corporations, as in large corporations that have come to Guam to benefit from the military buildup, which has had anywhere from a minor to a disastrous impact on the economy of the island. If you are a renter, you are one of the people who understands the type of impact the military buildup has contributed to the price of your rent. And so, what are we getting in exchange for that? One of the things that we had always been told by the government of Guam as a great thing about the military buildup was the billions of dollars that would come in, how that would circulate through the economy, and the tax revenue we would be able to grab from it. But because the Republicans want to meet their promise to the people, that might not be happening to the levels that are substantive, that are meaningful to us Guamanians who live here and have to deal with these effects. We'll get to all of that on the other side of the commercial break, and we'll talk about the ethics, or maybe the ethical quagmire the Republican senators are having in having to make good with their promise. And we'll talk about that on the other side of the commercial break. Stick with us. Welcome back to the show. It is now 12:49 p.m. on Tuesday, July 14, 2026. Happy birthday to Gerald Lujan. I mentioned earlier in the show that, and I realize that this is a morning show and it's 12:49 p.m. we go back to our regularly scheduled program tomorrow morning with our 8 a.m. shows and our 7:30 p.m. Evening shows, because I got power back yesterday. Anyway, so the Republicans have an ethical dilemma. No, they straight up have an ethical dilemma. So on the one hand, they have made a promise to the people of Guam, to the voters of Guam. And this promise was made prior to the 2024 election. And they said, if you elect a Republican majority, we are going to return the BPT to 4%. That's within the context of the BPT had already been cut for the vast majority, more than 90% of businesses in this island, from 5% to 3%, lowest it's ever been. So the Republicans were like, for everybody else, for the rest of the less than 10%, which is the largest companies of this island, right? They want to lower the BPT. They promised that they would lower the BPT from 5% to 4%. They went halfway on that promise with the fiscal year 26 budget, which we're in right now, by reducing the BPT to 4.5%. And according to the experts on this stuff, that has eroded revenues $40 million. So the largest corporations of this island have been able to save $40 million combined. That, if I'm not mistaken, that's like what, like $1 billion or $800 million in revenue that was not taxed because of the lowering of the rate, if something like that, right? So when you consider the ethics of it, when you think about the right versus wrong, right? One of the first things that pops up in your head is, well, they made a promise. And aren't you supposed to keep your promise? And if the answer to that is yes, you know, when you make a promise, you're supposed to keep your promise. If the answer to that was yes, then the next question ensues, and it's, should they have made this promise? And you ask that question in the context of who this tax break is for, this tax decrease is for. I think it's pretty relevant to ask, what are they going to use with the money? How does it affect the economy? More specifically, how does it affect the economy of the most vulnerable in our community? And then asking, how does it affect the economy of the middle class of this community? And to a lesser extent, how does it affect the economy of those in the upper echelons? And you consider that not just because they're also human beings who are living and working here and contributing and producing, right? But also in terms of their ability to invest that money back into the economy through employment, raises, additional capital expenditures, all these different ways that the economy can be stimulated and how that can benefit, you know, the middle class and those who are the most vulnerable. And I really wasn't interested in this subject until Senator Chris Barnett made an amendment to the budget. It ended up failing. Only a few senators voted for it. But he wanted this amendment made that would keep the BPT at the 4.5% and invest what is anticipated to be an additional $40 million in revenue, as they budgeted out, right? Into essentially $1,000 tax rebates to every household on this island. There's about 40,000, probably fewer, 40,000 households in this island. So, you know, who couldn't use $1,000? And if the argument for reducing the BPT is to keep more money in the hands of the people, then why not just give it into the hands of the households, now into the hands of the people? Why do we have to believe in trickle-down economics that, you know, arguably doesn't work? Why is this only going to benefit the richest corporations, most of whom aren't even anchored here in Guam? Now, I don't know that to be a fact. I don't know it to be a fact that the majority of the businesses that this remaining 0.5% affects are, the majority of them, carpetbaggers. That's just based on the information made by arguments on the floor by senators. I don't have a source to prove that. I'm going by what the senators are saying. But if that is true, I think it does call into question whether the Republicans should have made this promise back in 2024. And it was a smooth and clean promise to make, right? In the midst of the election and on in the elevator talking points that you have, the brief attention span of voters and what it is that they're able to consume, right? They made this promise. Now, was it the right promise to make? Is it right that after being promised the world by not just the military and the federal government, but our own government of Guam through several administrations and several legislatures, that the military buildup was supposed to do this, this, and this for us? And one of the things that it was supposed to drive is more revenue into the government of Guam so that we can do the things like, and I'll play it for you. Senator Chris Barnett raised a point. He said, you know, if we had been taxing these things properly several years ago, we could be capturing the revenue needed to start placing the power system underground. And how relevant of a discussion is that, considering what we went through since Super Typhoon Bobby? And that's when I started, when these arguments were coming up, that's when I was like, yeah, I kind of care about this argument now. I kind of care what the legislature does about the BPT. Yeah, now it affects me. It's not just about, because you know, you ask me, like, if you make lots of money, good for you. If you are a large corporation that's, you know, you are banking because you've got the great business model, you didn't corrupt any system, you didn't take some sort of shortcut because of some favoritism or some transaction you made with a politician, hey, good for you. I'm happy for you and all of your employees, all of your investors, or whatever, right? But the moment this starts to take away from us, from the people of Guam, and the moment there is corruption involved or some sort of transaction that is unethical that's involved, of course I'm going to care. And I think all of us should care. On the other side of the commercial break, I want to start playing for you an amendment that Senator Tello Taitigui made on Saturday during the budget deliberations, where she wanted to keep the BPT at 4.5% for those companies that have military buildup contracts. We're talking about the hundreds of millions of dollars, people. We're talking about, I mean, I don't even care if they're from Guam or if they're not from Guam. I mean, you're making more than $100 million. Why are we bending over backwards to give you the tax break? We'll talk about that. Or no, we're not going to talk about it. We'll listen to the amendment by Senator Tello Taitigui, and then play the debate that happens after that. And then I'm not going to have enough time to bring you to the section where Senator Chris Barnett talks on this amendment. But Barnett made one of the more fiery speeches about this, and I guess I'll save that until tonight. So on the other side of the commercial break, we'll get straight to Senator Taitigui's amendment and the debate that follows after that. Stick with us.
Guam AutoSpot is extending our overstock sell-off with the hottest deals on island, like our 2025 GMC Canyon with $4,000 off, or slide into a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, starting at just $24,995. September is your chance to drive big and save even bigger. Visit us today or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com or call 478-AUTO. Guam AutoSpot, where the savings never stop.
This stuff's hitting the spot. Stand by. I have to redo the stupid, hold on. Give me a second.
I apologize to my colleagues for being a little late. I was outside talking to constituents and, regarding this amendment. But, I'll go through it. And first, I proffer an amendment to strengthen the Guam's collection of the BPT revenue from the military contracts performed here on island. So as you remember, colleagues, last year I placed and this body supported a provision in the budget to preserve the 5% BPT on military contracts over $100 million. That was an important step because the FY26 budget lowered the general BPT rate to 4.5% with a future reduction in this one to now 4%. But after reviewing the state of our economy and the last financial report, I strongly believe we should remove the 10 million threshold. And this amendment does just that. If everyone looks at the CRER report, we've noticed that, of course, the BPT has lessened, but withholding and corporate tax has gone up considerably. And though I talked to Lester about is this attributed to at least keeping that 5% for this military contracts? Now, it's military buildup contracts, my colleagues. Before I came in here, I was stopped by two individuals talking about, oh, we don't support this. And I explained the reason why this should be supported. I reminded the individuals about the 4 pillars when the military buildup first came in play in 2008. And the reason why they put that pillar there, because of these concessions between the military and the government of Guam, because the impact it will have on our people. And that this money will generate revenue for our island to help our infrastructures, help build our schools, our roads that are going to be impacted by the additional increase in population of military buildup. So a lot of people bought into that, saying, it's right, that's income coming into our island to help fix areas such as, infrastructure to provide roads to homes that are still, people going home in gravel and dirt roads, where housing is so expensive now, maybe the government now can afford the infrastructure to bring water and power so that people can utilize their land to build their homes. Excuse me. These are some of the areas in which this military buildup was going to bring to our people. But the best part about it was that the BPT that are attached to any military buildup contract was going to be paid by DOD. It's in the contract. So if Black Construction or Paris Brothers or Joe Tenorio's construction company gets a military buildup contract, they do not pay the BPT. It's DOD that pays the BPT. Now let's say a subcontractor Joe Tenorio's construction company wants to hire John Cruz. John Cruz is not going to have to avail himself of paying a BPT because you can't do double taxation. It's illegal. So that covers the subcontractors. But what we're doing by putting a threshold of $10 million on military contracts that are bound to soon, and in 5 years, we are going to miss the boat. The whole nemesis of military contract. was to help our island adjust to the impact of this. Not just the impact, but to help us get ahead with infrastructure, with schools. Because I can tell you, any person that comes into Guam from the military, they don't have to go to DOD schools, DODEA schools. They can go to GW. They can go to the University of Guam. They can avail themselves of all these areas. So, colleagues, and as I talked these two individuals, I said, okay, so what are you seeing that's wrong? They couldn't explain. After I explained to them, they could not explain why it's bad.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment.
So I'm asking again, my colleagues, to remove the threshold, because like I said, whether it's $10 million or $10, DOD pays the 5% BPT, not the people. So I'm asking my colleagues, please to support this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment, anyone wish to speak on the amendment? On the Tadigui amendment, Senator Parkinson, you recognize.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the Tadigui amendment. You know, there has been a lot of talk for a lot of years about how this military buildup is going to bring extra tax revenue to the island. And now the military buildup is here. It's happening in full swing. And as the retiring speaker mentioned, the 5% is built into these contracts. So when we made the switch from 5% to 4.5% carte blanche for everybody, we painted with so broad a brush that we gave the military buildup the same consideration that we would give a mom and pop store, which is just inherently doesn't make sense. The military buildup is a temporary thing that's happening, and we should be taking advantage of it while it's happening. And so I absolutely agree with this amendment. In fact, if I had my way, we should consider raising the BPT on military contracts, because it is a temporary thing that is happening. What was the whole point of selling this to our island for extra tax revenue? Then when the time actually comes, we bend over backwards to give them a 20% haircut on their taxes. Doesn't make any sense. The military buildup is something that is happening. By not taking advantage of it, by not reaping the tax benefits of it, we are shortchanging our island. We are using our military buildup funding right now, my people of Guam, to basically subsidize tax cuts for the top 10% of businesses. Businesses with millions of dollars in revenue. The military industrial complex, the military buildup, is about a third of the island's $9 billion economy. And we gave them the same tax cuts for why? And now we're putting in this arbitrary line of $10 million. All that does is it's going to cause these contractors to try and game the system. If we're going to tax them, let's tax them. Let's not put in these arbitrary thresholds. Let's use these resources to make our island better. There are going to be negative impacts to the military buildup. Part of the reason we have these taxes is to offset and mitigate those factors. But if we are shortchanging ourselves, then that's going to come out on our people too. So at this time, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the amendment and change the collected tax rate from 5 to 6% for any military contract, and I'd like to discuss that amendment.
You may proceed. You may proceed on your amendment to the amendment.
My amendments are amendments.
I want to pick up this conversation and pick up from where we left off with Senator Parkinson's amendment to the amendment. So what you heard what he wants to do, the amendment failed. He wanted to increase the BPT to 6% for military contractors. And you heard why. Well, I mean, why not? Why shouldn't these large corporations pay this, especially if they're not even anchored here in Guam? But for me, even if they are anchored here in Guam, did you know, this might surprise you. So the strongest economy we ever had was at the end of Eddie Calvo's term, right? Everything was just all together. And it's not necessarily Eddie Calvo isn't the reason, the one and only reason that the economy was great, just a confluence of circumstances and leadership and fiscal policy by the legislature and the governor at the time. Of course, that added to it, right? Strongest economy we ever had. You would think that because of the pandemic and because of all this other stuff, right, that the gross island product would be significantly lower than it was in 2018, 2019, at the end of the Calvo era. I remember checking, was it 2 years ago or a year ago? Either in 2025 or 2024. Gross island product had not gone back up to the 2018 or 2019 levels, but it had gone up significantly, substantially. And it's because of the military buildup. Now, if you're wondering, why the hell didn't it go up for me? Why does it feel like the economy is not strong for me? If we're talking about a strong economy, the economy is strong in Guam. I mean, if you look at the amount of money flowing through this island, the gross island product, the amount of money makes it look like Guam is relatively wealthy, relatively rich. And if you're not feeling it, and if you understand that all of the people around you who you know aren't feeling that sense of wealth and richness and positive benefit from whatever strong economy this is, well, it's because the economy is strong for some people and they happen to be at the top. So why the heck can't we tax them at 6%? I'm wondering the same thing that Senator Parkinson is wondering. And thankfully, I don't have the awesome responsibility of being a legislator. I don't have all of the facts. But in my civilian mind, when I look at these companies that are making off and their owners and investors who are making off, and who are the same people who are invested in the arguments being made against them paying for the privilege to do business in this island and to take this money and to be part of the cause of the negative impacts of this stuff onto us, the regular people who have to pay more because of these negative impacts. I'm wondering, why the hell shouldn't the legislature tax these companies at these higher rates? We'll talk about that tonight. I was on the line with our service provider who tells us that there is a fiber issue in the area that should be mitigated or should be resolved by tonight. So by tonight's show, we should have a more stable connection. Anyway, for Kandit, I'm Troy Torres. I want to thank you so much for joining me this afternoon and for having patience with me over the past week as we have dealt with the post-Bavi period. And thank you again to Guam Power Authority for restoring island power to us in this area yesterday so that we can get back to our regularly scheduled program starting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. But join me tonight At some point tonight, we're going to have the evening show, and we're going to continue our discussion on the BPT and what senators should or should not do, and who should be paying more for the privilege of doing business on this island. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. You all have a wonderful day, and God bless you. Access to medical care is becoming more and more of an issue here in Guam, and it doesn't even matter if you have the ability to pay. It's getting harder to see a doctor, to get an appointment, or to get the specialty care that you need. So I want to show you a growing solution to a growing problem. They're going to go out of their way to help find you a solution. And they've been growing their clinical services. Aside from this place looking and feeling homely, like this is their waiting area. Like, I don't think that people really understand that they do full clinical services here. Like, this is one of their clinical rooms. Look how nice it is. You get your vision exam here. So do you need to see an OBGYN, get family medicine done, internal medicine done? This is all stuff that's done here at the Total Guam Foundation. And just to tell you again, this place is not for profit. This is the psychologist's office. Yes, they have a psychology department. They also do psychiatry. It's an entire mental health department that they have here on top of all the other clinical services that they provide. If you need medical care, if you're having problems getting a doctor, getting an appointment, call the Total Guam Foundation at 649-TODU or 649-8638. You can visit them on the first floor of the Sunny Plaza building that's next to Sunny Outlet and behind the old Bank of Hawaii building in Tamuning.